Happy New Year, everyone. It is January 5th, 2026, and that is the first load of old crop corn coming out of our bins. Market prices have improved significantly since we stored. Locally, we're probably 30 to 40 cents a bushel better than that. If you weren't aggressively hedged on fall delivery, grain bins paid big this year. Again, marginal improvement in basis and futures price, that results in a victory. For the price of these bins, we make money about every year. The newer ones are a little harder to justify, but there are opportunities there. Corn prices have held pretty firm at an okay-ish profitability level. Soybeans have completely erased most of their post-trade war is over rally. We're back close to low $10 cash beans right now. Back to what I said in multiple videos, the trade war is a blip on the headline map. The global supply of soybeans is the issue. It's not that China isn't buying our beans, it's that the world has too many beans. It really doesn't matter where China buys them from other than your local basis. Hope you guys all had a great Christmas and New Year. Let's pray 2026 is a good one. Need to get that tanker up to bulk tech to get some baffles put in it so it doesn't rock our world when we drive it. If you look 3/4 of a mile south, there's a huge flock of snow geese out on that farm. There's a hunter that has a bunch of decoys permanently set up on the lane. I don't know if he's out today or not. Missed a couple tile holes right here. There's one there. Here's an inlet. Might just be a breather. And there's a tile hole next to it. I had this located a while back and never got around to fixing it. Might even have been last year, so getting a little more active here as the new year starts. Get that located. I don't think there's utilities, but don't really want to leave it to chance. Yeah, I've definitely had it located before. You can see the faded paint. Sometimes this paint lasts a long time, others not very much. Before the last big snowstorm we had early December, I had a bunch of locate marks out, and between the snow and the snow plowing, it wiped off a lot of this. Those piles on the property line are all that remains from that big tree line we cost shared the removal of with a neighbor. It's going to completely change farming around that in-row. Unfortunately, while I was out there looking at some of the carnage, I noticed a few tile holes that I missed, so that's part of why I'm out here locating. I think those trees are going to be good to burn here in the next couple weeks if we get the right wind. What in the world? Is the township in the bird business now? Must be the neighbors. At the end of November, before December, all the snowstorms and snow we had on the ground, I had a lot of things located and just didn't get around to completing them. I believe legally your locates expire after 2 weeks. So technically you need to relocate them to have the legal protection of a location done. This one, I'm already in private communication with the ammonia pipeline operator or supervisor. I'm going to go ahead and return in the Julie just to make sure everything's kosher, but the only utility that was here is the pipeline. I'm gonna have to dig across it twice. I'm not going very deep, so it's not really that big of a deal, but just want to dot my I's and cross my T's. That way, if I hit a phone line or something, I'm not liable for it if it's not marked. Probably don't need to redo that one. If you disregard the big stories, lackluster grain prices, high operating cost, interest rates that kind of nickel and dime you along the way on both sides of that equation, the story here locally is how dry the ground is. We've had a few decent snowfalls. We've had a couple nice showers, nothing over 3/4 of an inch. So we may have had 1.5 inches or 2 inches of total moisture in the last 6 to 8 weeks. If you combine that with some occasional freezing temperatures, it makes the topsoil look a little greasy with the frost, but overall, the subsoil all the way down is bone dry. We've not added a bit of moisture to the important reservoirs underneath. I hate to know where the water table's at right now. It's not very high. Yes, it is January. We've got 3 to 4 months before planting season, and realistically 5 to 6 months before we really need large reserves of moisture if we have a dry summer. It's not a death sentence. We can get a lot of rain here in March and April, refill the soil quickly, and forget it was ever dry. Regardless, if there's not an above average amount of moisture in the late winter or spring, we could be in big trouble going into 2026 planting season, especially if we have another dry summer like we've been having. I said this 2 seasons in a row, both 23 and 24, so a lot can change, but right now it's really dry. And just like that, we are done hauling for this morning because our local power cooperative has some kind of an outage. It's funny that the day we try to use the power for the first time, the power goes out. It's no one's fault, but there's some kind of irony there.
Dad.
For comprehensive household power needs, Dad and Jeff both have the fancy Generac natural gas backup generators. I have the Jackery setups. They're more isolated for specific needs for longer periods of time. I know the power's back on though because Jeff's generator just shut off. Another noteworthy development here is we have a local buyer for our beloved international 10-wheeler. A row crop and cattle farmer from the opposite corner of the county saw my ad on Facebook for this and made us a very reasonable offer. Came and test drove it and decided they want it, except there was one issue. When they were driving it after a cold winter's day, it died and we had to reprime the system. So we're going to do a few maintenance things on it. We're going to flush all of the old fuel out of the tank. We're going to replace the fuel prime seal assembly on it just in case that's the issue, and then put a new fuel filter on. That most likely will fix the issue, and I almost bet the fuel is just a little stale because this thing's been sitting for 4 years now. It shows you the state of the ag economy right now. The cattle guys are looking for upgrades on their farm, and us row crop farmers are pawning things off to make it by for another year. This hose may not be fuel rated, but it's extremely cheap, so it's about the same, right? We went above and beyond here because I'd say we removed 70 plus gallons of what appears to be mostly good fuel, although any contaminants are probably on the bottom of the tank and not getting pumped out. We are going to store those for later use somewhere, and Dad's working on the fuel filter right now. Correction, Dad already has the fuel filter off, and he got some fresh road fuel to put in here just to get us back over to the tank. Help me here. It's the new fuel filter, and then that is that pump primer seal. These were the recommendations of our mechanic. The fuel filter is kind of a no-brainer, but the pump primer thing's the questionable part. So it says fuel the outside, not the center. It's about 80% full. Since we haven't actively used that truck in so many years, it doesn't really feel bittersweet to sell it. It's going to another good farmer not too far away, and we feel good about that because it's been a great truck. If it had had problems, yeah, you might consider selling it out of the area so those problems don't haunt them and you, and they're a drive away from you. Whereas that, it's been good. Chris just stopped driving for us hauling grain, so we parked it and we hadn't sold it. I'm kind of looking forward to the space, and maybe we can put that money towards something useful or save it. That's probably the more responsible thing to do. I talked about the piles needing to be burned, and then 20 minutes later the neighbors showed up and lit their piles. All of the big piles are on their side of the property line. Technically, we have the further 2 south ones. I went ahead and lit them since they lit theirs. They said that if you get to the piles quick, within a month or 2 months, of pulling them, they burn really good. If you wait a while and let the wood get soaked, it really needs to dry out. So they've got theirs going, I've got ours going on the south end. I'm gonna bring our backhoe over and try to push the pile in itself because the wood's burning really good. There were a lot more trees in this line than I realized, and the piles further to the north are even bigger. That's every bit of 25 foot tall in the air there. At least they're condensed. When they sit on top of each other, that coal bed maintains the heat and it really just eats away and burns the rest of that wood out. Should be gone within a couple of days. A lot of heat in this one. It's been burning for 3 hours maybe. See a little bit of barbed wire tied up in there. That's the only downside to these old fence rows. They're typically overgrown pasture fences, so you get the barbed wire with them. You got to pick that out later. It's hard to put a price tag on freeing up space in the shed. I believe we've got 3 other trucks to sell. The one that we've just sold or got the fuel transferred out of, it's the nicest. The others are all like this. A couple of them have aluminum beds, which are worth quite a bit, but the trucks themselves are less enticing. Dad has entertained splitting them. Basically, you take the bed off and sell them separately. It's a whole set of headaches in and of itself. I would just like the space where this truck sits and where this highboy sits. Everything else is pretty much fair game. Not going to sell the 4520. It's a memento. Maybe one day we'll restore it. I'd like to know what happened to the backhoe here. Drove through oil, cleaned off the tread. That's probably what it is. Road time is hard on these. They're so heavy. The wind's mostly out of the southwest right now. Just looked at my phone. Overnight it's going to shift out of the straight south. I'm going to try to just push the pile on top of the coals. I may even reignite it here later before nighttime. Not that I'm doing anything suspicious. Hard to explain to the finance committee. Mission accomplished. Look at the heat come off this baby. All I did was kind of fan the flames a little bit by lifting and piling it. Other than the biggest logs, a lot of it will be pretty burnt down by this evening. I thought there was a lot more burning left to do, so I planned on just taking the backhoe home and bringing it back tomorrow or the next day. Based on what I'm seeing, I just went ahead and called Dad and said, we're gonna leave this here. We'll restack it again before sunset. Maybe throw a little more fuel on the fire if we need to. There's gonna be a southern wind. It's going to pick up quite a bit too. It'll burn this real good. This is some of my favorite type of work on the farm, the land management stuff. It'd probably be even more enjoyable if we did the track hoe work ourselves to have it done. With that being said, for what us and the neighbor paid to have this tree line removed, you'd have to do a lot of work with a pretty nice track hoe to justify owning one. Now, the gentleman who did this didn't exactly have the cream of a crop for an excavator, but it's no different than your planters, your tillage tools. It's really not about the age or even the technology. It's about how you use it and take care of it. With that being said, I would not recommend ever buying a used farm backhoe. This poor thing's been driven in fire more times this year than it's been greased. And that's on me, and I'll admit it. Dad came over and snatched me. I'm planning on digging tomorrow. I've got the ammonia pipeline guy lined up. We still have not added hydraulic oil to this. We've picked up the fancy non-ferrous, some kind of special hydraulic oil for this. We're gonna put that in. Here it is. Non-zinc, no zinc. That's what's special about it. Never seen or even heard of this until we had this thing.
You going?
It is. I'm just trying to not overspill it.
Oh, stop. Is the tube going up?
see something.
Where?
Right there on the bottom. It's there.
The tube is going up, see? How much you got left in there?
The tube can't, oh, that's when it's moving. I'm out.
Should we put some more in?
Yeah, let's put in a quart maybe. All right, quick reality check. It is getting properly cold out here on the farm, and I'm sure starting to feel it as we do our work outside. There's not as much this time of year, but when you gotta go out and do it, you dread it. When you're working outdoors in this damp Midwestern cold that we have here, the best thing to have is a heater. The second best thing to have is a great pair of winter work gloves, like these toolant gloves I've been trying out here for the last month and a half. When it comes to gloves, there are a lot of ambitious claims on the market, and that is exactly why I've been testing out these toolant waterproof winter gloves. A lot of competitors claim they're waterproof, but these ones actually do the job. I'm talking fully submerged, breaking ice, washing off equipment, dealing with mud. The water literally does not get through them. Here is an additional feature that actually matters to me since I'm always on my phone or filming, checking the markets, creating content. They are waterproof, insulated, and touchscreen compatible. I don't have to take my gloves off to check the corn prices or change my camera settings. My hands stay warm, dry, and I can actually keep working while multitasking. If you're doing chores, hunting, or just trying to survive an Illinois winter, you need to try these to keep your hands dry and warm. They are durable, flexible, provide dexterity, and honestly, they just work very well. Yeah, the weather outside right now may be frigid. In a couple days, it's going to get down to -4 actual temperature. I am glad to have these toolant gloves insulated, keeping my hands warm so I can work when I'm brave enough to go outside in these miserable temperatures. If you're in the market for a new pair of work gloves, check out what Toolant has to offer in the links below. We typically never stock our dyed diesel tanks with anything other than biodiesel. It's tax-free, but this time of winter, our semis, our pickup trucks, we're obviously running taxable road fuel. Because it can get close to 0 degrees here, we get winter blend, and sometimes when we fill up some of our winter equipment, our excavator, our backhoe, some of the other stuff, we'll just throw the road fuel in here. Yes, I know we're paying a little bit of extra taxes, which is very un-American of us. We get the peace of mind of knowing that this fuel shouldn't gel up. Now, if it gets down to 0 degrees, I'm not going to be excavating anyways. Just do it for peace of mind.
Energies to lock in a strong basis before premium slips away. Don't start the year behind. Get smarter marketing and a 25% discount. Just call or text me New Year 26 to...
Did they call me just to try to sell me their services? That's a good way to never get answered again. That's a little rusty. Some WD-40 on it will actually spin. It's impossible to tell right now. This is our second wettest farm. When we get a big rain, 50 of the 70 acres out here will be underwater, and 10 to 20 acres is at risk of severe water damage. It's all drained by an inlet here in the corner. That's part of a big drainage district main. Dad claims it goes 2 miles to the south. Truth probably lies somewhere in the middle there. I doubt it goes that far. And it doesn't either have the capacity or the outlet's not good enough to really get this thing empty, especially for how much water is here. A lot of the water doesn't directly go to the corner. It comes to the ditch, or the very little ditch we have. Then it obviously runs to the inlet, and as it can, it leaves. Long term, I'd love to get a new main in here and either drain across the neighbors or drain that way. There's a lot of areas around to go. It's just putting in a high dollar main to drain the farm is the problem. Long story short, I'm going to clean out around here. You can see the two markers. There's an ammonia pipeline. There's the ammonia pipeline across the road, and then there is a valve for the ammonia pipeline. And I'm digging all the way along here, and there's a little field ditch that goes past it. You should always call for a locate and then get in contact with the supervisor to make sure that you're clear digging, especially if you're in the right of way, because I pretty much am going to be in the right of way most of the time. The pipeline guy said it'd be out here mid-morning, which to me is probably 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and it's a little after 9 right now. I made a bit of a mistake. I thought I had my camera rolling a time lapse while I was digging, and it was not in fact rolling a time lapse. So pretend that you just watched me dig and level for 3 hours. John from the New Star Pipeline watching me dig, and once I got out of his area of concern, I don't know how big the right of way actually is, he left, cleaned out into the field a little bit, and then dug quite a bit of this ditch here. I didn't really have to add any grade to the dig. I don't think grade is the issue. What we were wanting to do is just kind of expand the floodplain that fills this inlet right here, part of the drainage district tile that goes a couple miles south to get the water off of this swamp. We finally had a dry enough summer last year that this field was our best beans, made 85 or 86. I believe entirely due to the dark, swampy, black, high CEC, high organic matter soil out here, and it worked well. Most years it's not our best, but it's never really bad either. Of course, I found some souvenirs too. Fence post and a glass beer bottle. You can always count on finding beer bottles and cans. So dug out this way. I didn't really go that far. It's a little bit too deep there next to the valve station for the pipeline. I didn't dig it any deeper. It was already too deep. There's gonna be enough water here that it'll find its way when it gets there. I did the same, headed west. I feel like there's a high spot in there. If we get a 3-inch rain out here, especially if there's no grass in the bottom of this, it'll go wherever it wants and kind of cut a new grade. And if I gotta take a shovel to that, it's no big deal. Just trying to get the water out here so we'll get out of the field quicker. May not make much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. It's one of those farms that needs a whole nother main put in and a big, tight tile pattern. A few weeks ago, I bid on a brush cutter attachment for the front of this mini excavator, thinking it would be great to use when it's frozen outside and you can't really dig. It ended up going for close to market value. I thought I'd get a discount. By the time you added the buyer's premium in, yes, it was a little bit cheaper. I didn't feel that thrilled about that at auction, so we let it go. Might look into that moving forward. For now, we're just gonna focus our efforts on this. I've heard mixed opinions about the brush cutters for these. You gotta be careful with your windows because if you launch a piece, you will shatter them. You might have to replace them with plexiglass that isn't going to shatter like legitimate glass would. And I've also heard debates about how effective they are at actually cutting brush. Yeah, small stuff, if you're mowing tiny twigs out, no problem, but they're rated for 6-inch brush. And I don't know how efficiently you could actually go through 6-inch brush. Whereas the bucket with the thumb, 6-inch brush gets plucked out pretty easy. The snow geese sure are active on the old gravel pit. They're segregated by color. Look, the darker ones are here on the south end, and then the northern group is more white. Unless those are different types of geese on the south. What seems to be the millionth time I'm in a terrace bottom. There's a little suck hole right here. My guess is probably a mouse hole. That's what I'm seeing a lot of. Thankfully it's not around the inlet. I've had to dig up so many of those. That day or a couple of days where I fixed like 7 or 8 of them, it was just across the creek here. I didn't get to this side because honestly I never scouted it out to see. I knew deep down that there was probably something over here. Rock? I can't tell. My hubris may have caused some damage right there. I kept digging without probing, thinking I was gonna get lucky, and I got lucky. I hit the main. It's a pretty big one. That's soft through there. I know I scraped it with the bucket, but I don't know, that's not in good shape. The area that's sucking is easy to identify. You get this silt that settles in there, and then there's also some debris. It's probably where this inlet here tees right into it. I'm gonna dig it up, see what happens. Despite this all being plastic tile, they went with the classic cover up the good joints with sackcrete that's gonna erode away at the plastic and fall apart itself in 30 years. I think that's where it's sucking right there. I don't have any of my parts, they're back at the truck. I know I've got a few more tile holes just right uphill on the next terraces. I'm gonna just excavate them all, and then I'll bring my truck out with the parts. I'll probably just put a piece of felt under that for now, close it back up, and then maybe put another piece of felt around it. This main right here, along with the main across, separate main, they both outlet to the creek, but the grades are opposite each way, is probably getting bad. So some of this original tile put in here, for whatever reason, I don't know if it wasn't properly U-shaped or troughed at the bottom, or the tile itself wasn't manufactured very good. It was all starting to rib up top and then kind of cave in on itself. It's not sucking anything yet, but even here, and maybe I did a little bit of damage with the Mini when I was digging, I don't think so. That's not in the best shape for a presumably 12-inch. It looks bigger than it is because I think it's bowed down. And that could have something to do with that right there. This side of the farm right here, which has 3 big terraces draining on it, and then the other side, both really need their mains replaced. That may be something we put on the list here in the next couple of years. It's unfortunate because all this tile is supposed to be 100-year lifespan, and we're seeing in the original stuff, and maybe the manufacturing and engineering wasn't as good then, doesn't quite last that long. After 10 minutes of travel, I'm up at the next one. Around the inlet looks good. Might need dug out a little bit. There could be a slight suck hole, but I'm probably not going to mess with that. That is going to be where the inlet is tying into the main, surely. The other one was to the north. This one's probably to the north, and I'm guessing it's going to be the same exact issue. This one looks a little different. The 2 holes over here are obvious. Sometimes if you pay close attention, you'll find the other ones that you filled in. So there's really 3 holes. 1, 2, 3, if you consider those separate ones. The $1,000,000 question is always, is there 3 holes in the tile? Or is one problem sucking dirt from 3 different areas? Which is very often the case. If you've been following along with the guessing game and picked where the tile inlet ties into the main like I did, you were wrong. We've got an old clay crossing here, a patch through the middle of it. Either Dad and I did this, which it doesn't look like our work, or the tile guy when he was out here. And there's just a big gap there on that end. It should have some kind of plastic around it, and it doesn't. And there's a small gap on this end. Just goes to show you really need to put at least plastic or felt around them to prevent them from sucking open, because if you had plastic there, if it settled downward like it did, it still could have just held together there with the plastic acting as kind of a coupler or bridge. I don't know if this is where the laterals we had installed went through, and they went through them. I couldn't tell you. There's an old clay up higher there too, so it's a dynamic situation. That one's pretty much condemned. It's full of mud, which is a lot easier than having to patch that one because it's still flowing water. If the tile wasn't actively flowing, typically it's not going to produce a suck hole. It's a completely full pipe that's not moving any kind of water or air. Oh, this one's going to be messy. Big inlet, big hole. Our henbit crop for next spring sure does look good. It's a foggy one this morning. Those local farmers just came by, signed off on that old 10-wheeler, took it home. I'm optimistic that we resolved any of the fuel issues with the new filter and replacing the old diesel fuel in there. I told them that if they have any issues between here and at least halfway home to give me a call. I'll run over and help them. I'm fueling my truck up a little bit. It's foggy this morning. Jeff is hauling corn. We've cored 2 bins. Moisture is about where we want it, 15 to 16%. Dad and I have checked quite a few bins in the last few days. We've got one bin site over east where he said the corn looks like it's got a little bit of a crust forming on it, meaning there's just residual moisture on top. It's not a big deal, but that means next time it's either frozen or cold, we either need to core the bin or move some air through it, probably both. If we get the right weather, we'll get that taken care of. Good to be active and moving. It's also going to be a little bit greasy on top with all this dew, so I may wait a little bit to go over and finish those tile holes. I've got Graham, the middle child, with us. Lenny's at school, and the baby has a doctor's appointment, so he's been assisting in our business. He's being shy and eating his Cool Ranch Doritos. Are those blue chips good? Yep. You want more blue chips? That's all we have. You've got at least a couple chips worth on your mouth and hands. Us Dole gentlemen are very easy to satisfy. Just give us the food we want, and we're pretty passive. In a matter of 5 minutes, it's gone from not being able to see 100 feet to being able to see a half mile easily. It's amazing what the sun can do. Here's a great visualization of how dry it's been here for the last 6+ months. This is a spillway or a sediment basin on the uphill side of Lake Mattoon. Normally this water is all the way up to this bank here, and there's spots out there, I believe, where the water isn't even flowing to the lake anymore. So we are that far below where we normally are. Granted, it's probably only a foot to 18 inches of surface water. In totality, that's quite a deficit to make up here. Yes, we've still got water, and this is a more extreme place to look because it's on the uphill side. The trend is dry though, so let's hope it starts raining, and raining big. Not all at once, maybe an inch a day for 3 weeks. That'd be perfect. I'm finally getting back over here to my tile holes that I've had open all day. Neighbors are cleaning the barbed wire out of the piles. They've got a skid steer with a grapple and their backhoe running. There's some deer climbing up the hill here. Probably disappointed that their winter home is gone now. Sorry about that. This is the last hole I dug up yesterday evening. The inlet jointing into the main. It does have a plastic coupler in here. They topped it off, or thought they were securing it more with concrete, and ultimately I believe the concrete's actually what is eroding at these plastic joints. Either the shifting of the earth is rubbing against these, or the weight of the concrete is starting to crush these things open. The real solution here would be to cut this out and put a brand new plastic joint in, tape it up and leave it. I'm not venturing to that extent. I'm doing a little cheaper like I always do. Put some felt on it, put some pieces around it, and then probably put a piece of felt over top of it and see how long it holds for. It's pretty underwhelming from the top. You'll just have to take my word for it that I attempted to fix that. I prefer patches like this. Not a lot of shoveling. You just throw a little bandage over it, seal it up. I'll put another piece on top, and it should be good to go. It helps that it's not that important of a line either. It's probably a secondary or tertiary clay line that was put in 100 years ago to drain someone's basement or something on top of the hill. Easy peasy. Here's the hole we dug first and the one we patched last. I just threw some felt on and then covered it back up. It wasn't a very big hole, just a small leakage. Another one where the joint probably needs replaced. I'm not doing that. I talked about how dry it is. Even in the terrace bottoms, there is a little bit of moisture in that pile. It's also been sitting here in the open air for a day, and there's a good breeze this morning. The ground is damp. It's not exactly wet for this time of year. Typically, if I'm out here in the winter fixing tile holes, there's water running in the tiles, and I've got mud and frozen fingers, all of that fun stuff that goes along with it, but I don't. The ground is relatively dry. Is it concerning, as I mentioned earlier in the video? Yeah, slightly. It can change really quick, so I'm not going to lose any sleep over this until probably May if it doesn't rain. You might be able to hear the whine of a fan in the background. We were pulling out of a new bin back at home, and Dad said it was coming out a little bit lackluster in quality despite the corn being dry and us keeping the fans on it. Scared him enough to turn some of these fans on, and I may have to get in a truck here when I get done with these projects and start moving grain a little faster. Adding that second semi really speeds up the coring process. I'm gonna backfill this, and then I may try to stack some of our piles together. This mini excavator is a versatile little sucker. You can do a lot with it. The only feature it's missing that would make it perfect is an ability to actually pitch the blade, because then you could cut legitimate ditches with it. Currently, my only option is to get one track in a lower spot that gives it a little bit of grade. I'd love to be able to pitch that though and cut a couple inches down. It would really speed up certain projects and just generally make this even more useful. So far, this has been one of the nicest upgrades and additions we've had on the farm. It wasn't cheap, but I think we've gotten a lot of value out of it so far this fall and winter. I may have to mandate some kind of continuing education credit hours on how to use a jack that has an adjustable stand. I can tell Dad was involved here because it's only drop down one, and then the whole length of the jack or the stroke of it is all the way down, so I can't get it high enough on my truck, whereas Dad's truck's just a half ton. It fits a little better, and lower, I need to be higher. To summarize my complaints this morning, the jack should always be stored as high up as you can rotate it, and then you pull the pin and push the adjustable part down. That gives you a lot of maneuverability for the size of the truck. Or at least be somewhere in the middle so you can go far enough down to get a shorter truck, whereas I have to pin this up with wood blocks to get this far enough down to get it on my truck. You always see people joking about how when they win the lottery, they may not tell you, but there'll be signs. My sign will be electric powered jacks on all of our trailers. I'm putting this trailer on to pick up one of the ash piles and move it somewhere else. There's a little bit of barbed wire in it, so we're gonna put it in a junk pile. I'm just trying to get it out before it rains tonight. The first pile's cleaned up. Moving to the second one, we're just gonna restack this one. Dad actually showed up to help, which is nice. He's really good at picking things up on the ground because he's just relentless and persistent when it comes to accomplishing things in front of him. Even if it's picking up sticks or rocks or metal, he's like an Energizer bunny. He'll complain about it for the next week that his back hurts, but when he's here, he's really, really good help. With Dad's expert help, we expeditiously got the north pile cleaned up. It's pretty much smooth. We restacked this and got the barbed wire out of it. I'm gonna stack it one more time before I leave, except I got sidetracked. With the mini excavator, it's not stop and smell the roses. It's drive slow and see tile holes you never knew were there. I fixed one out in the waterway. It's hard to really point out because the waterway's so messed up right now. Over there, in that general direction. I almost wonder if a tree root had grown in it and punched a hole in the clay. It was clean, just had a break in it. This looks like a small suck hole. And I love seeing some of these old ones, and you can see the trench mark. So there's a pretty wide trench area in here. If you look really close, I don't know if you'll pick it up on camera, there's about a 6-inch mark here where this was in. I mean, I don't even have to really guess where the tile is. It's running here. I've got it probed there. I probed it there. Something's going on here. It's a bigger area, so I wonder if they changed the size of the tile or maybe they turned it a little bit. Yep, that's about as easy as they come. 5-ish inch clay here. There's a hole on the back side. Could have slid it down in the chute and cracked it, and it took this long to surface a hole. The piece is right there. I believe that's it. Another question I have with old tiles like this is how long has this been sucking dirt or making a hole before we even noticed it? So this tile was laid, let's say 70 years ago. Has it been sucking dirt in this whole time and we've either been tilling over the top of it and filling in the signs of it, or was it so microscopic at the beginning it didn't matter? I wish I knew, because that'd be fascinating. I'm just gonna put a piece of this around it after I put some felt on it, put some dirt in it, and it should be better than it was. Folks, I may just have to teach a course on this. Expert work right here. Didn't hit the tile when I was digging down. That really extends the project. Shoveled around it, patched it like a bandage, and it is fixed well enough that it's not going to be my problem. In my years of apprenticeship following around my dad, I've learned a system to classify the degree of a problem. Is it going to be a problem that I have to deal with in my lifetime? If so, we should probably take care of it. Is it going to be someone else's problem because I most likely am going to be deceased? Yes, this one, probably someone else's problem. And who knows, In another couple years, we may have our own plow and have come in here and knifed straight through all these, and it won't matter anyways. I've done my part. Similar logic may have been at play there in the first place because of the odd excavation lineage around where that tile is. When they laid this nearly a century ago, probably said the same thing. Yeah, not gonna be my problem. We'll just put it in and worry about it later. Mess with that. I'm not sure I should even remove that. It's burning pretty good. Look at the heat. I think I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm pretty close to caught up on my own work right now. I'm waiting on a few more locates to come in to dig out a few more ditches that are filled in from time and erosion. I'll probably be in a semi here in the next week or two, just because you might as well make some kind of progress, and 2 trucks moves a lot more grain than 1 truck. With that being said, our week on the farm is over. A variety of jobs, and there's a lot more to come. I appreciate you all tuning in, and I sure hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!